I'll get close to you. All right. Hello.
And action.
Hello, YouTube. This is hopefully a quick video on our reasons for fostering to adopt and how the process has been so far. So this is the hubby, and I thought it'd be a good idea for him to chime in on, you know, whatever he wanted to talk about. So just to get started, I always wanted to adopt even before I met my husband. And when we came together, he also told me that he was interested in adopting even before we became husband and wife and before we started trying to conceive. So
I think it actually came up in our first date that we were both we had both been thinking about adopting or fostering, or that we were going to have an eclectic family in some way.
United Nations.
Right, and just so happened that all that came out on the first date, and that we had, you know, these similarities, and we kind of had the same mindset. So I guess it worked out for now.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about why fostering to adopt versus adoption is that there are and going through this process, we've realized there's so many children in the city, in the state, in the country who would benefit from being in a loving home. Whereas adoption, they make it so much more easier to adopt abroad versus, you know, having children that are, you know, right in your same city come into your home. And so
right, we went to an informational meeting when we first started to get serious about this, and that was more geared towards adoption. And it just seemed like in our state there were a lot of legal loopholes, and there was just a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we weren't too certain about. And being we had already been thinking about fostering as well, we decided, you know, to kind of steer our ship towards the foster and foster to adopt route, as opposed to the straight adoption, at least for now.
Yeah, for now. There might be a time where we will foster and have temporary or children temporarily in our home that return to their biological parent, because that's what fostering is. But for our first foster experience, we're really hoping to eventually adopt the child that is placed with us as of right now. So our foster agency actually understands that our ultimate goal is to adopt the children that are placed with us. So they're working with us on that goal. So there's two types of fostering, like I mentioned: fostering temporarily, where you have multiple children in your home at any given time, depending on how many children your home is licensed for, who return to their biological parent because their biological parent has done whatever they needed to do in order to gain their child back. And then there's fostering to adopt, which is what we really would like to do, which is have a child placed in our home because they can, for whatever reason, no longer be with their biological parent, and then hopefully eventually adopt that child.
Right, and our agency that we're working with, they actually, not every agency is set up the same. Our agency, we found an agency that they have two divisions. One is the straight foster, and then they kind of, you know, with the idea is return home. And then our kind of team that we're on, they strictly handle foster to adopt cases where, I mean, nothing's for certain, but it looks like, you know, when they get the cases, there's a very good chance that the return home is not going to be an option. So they're kind of placed into this program where it's more likely going to lead to an adoption. So that's the kind of sector that we got into as far as our agency is concerned.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we might use terms that new foster people aren't familiar with. So return home goal means that they are returning to their biological parent, as opposed to being adopted by the foster parent. So a lot of kids have return home goals, especially if they're young, though the state wants them to return to their biological parent. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, so because we're looking to adopt and have young children in our home, ages 0 to 3, that takes a while for that to come to fruition because a lot of other foster parents want the exact same thing. That seems to be like everybody's number, everybody's goal. So how the process has been so far for us. We've been licensed foster parents now for a year and a half in this state of Illinois. We have gone through 27 hours of training for about 3 months. Now they offer trainings like every night a week, but we couldn't do that. We found the Saturday classes to be the easiest for us. So we went for 3 months every single Saturday, all day. How long was it? 12 hours? It was long.
I think it was 6 hours.
Okay, it wasn't 12 hours.
There were 2 3-hour sessions each Saturday that we went to. A morning, and then we had a lunch break, and then an afternoon session.
And we did that for 3 months before we could become licensed. You are required to take this foster parent licensing class.
Yep, and so for that, I'll just speak to that a little bit. We had 2 trainers, and they were both worked for the Department of Child and Family Services, and one was, I believe, a case manager, and one was a foster parent herself. Well, they both were foster parents, but one was a foster parent herself, and just kind of she helps lead the training. And I think for us it was very good to have our trainers as people who went through exactly what we were going through. They went through the same training. They went through and getting placements for different children and that. So it was really good to have someone leading the class who has lived it.
So we do have to do a certain number. I'm sorry, I'm looking down because I have my notes on here. We do have to do a certain number of classes a year for our license to remain active. So just because we're done with becoming licensed, that doesn't mean that you're done learning and having these required number of hours that you have to continue to do in order to stay fresh on best practices for parenting, wards of the state, really.
And I think ours is 16 hours over 4 years, so they try to encourage you to do 4 hours a year, and there's just a number of different trainings.
You can do trainings online. Right. There's a lot of ways that they make it pretty available to you. We also have continuous visits from our licensing agency, and once you have a child placed in your home, you will have visits like on a weekly basis just to make sure that the child is doing well and thriving in your home, and any checkups that they need are up to date, and we can also do another video on what that looks like.
Yeah, our visits for now, since we don't have a placement, it's pretty much checking our smoke detectors, checking that there's nothing, guns laying around, knives laying around. They wanted to see where we keep our cleaning supplies. It basically, is our house baby proof or kid proof? Should we get a placement tomorrow? So they just want to see that the home is everything's good to go. So if we get the call, we're ready.
Yeah, and I just want to say that even though we have been licensed for a year and a half, I know a lot of you are probably hearing this thinking they still don't have a kid yet. Just so you know, that's another video. We have had a child placed with us, so it doesn't typically take like a year and a half. I can't even tell you what a typical wait time is, but just know that we have had calls for children that we have said, no, they're not necessarily a good fit. We have had a child in our home, and we can do another video on that. So just to wrap up, unless you have anything else you want to add, like I said, we could do an entire fostering series. So I just wanted to get an idea of what you guys were interested in listening to, but some questions that might come up are, the specific criteria that we specified and how, we're trying to be flexible on that, but we're also trying to figure out, as we're learning as we go with this, what works for us. Maybe we could have a 4-year-old, maybe we could have a 6-year-old in the house. So it might change.
Yeah, and every agency is different. Some agencies just say, what are your age ranges and what rate? Do you have a preference for race? Do you have a preference for sex? And then that's all they asked.
Our agency is a lot more detailed.
Right. They had it was about an 8-page packet, and there were about 50 different scenarios on each page. So I think there was about 400 scenarios. And I mean, it was everything from how likely would you be willing to, to accept a child who has special needs.
Or their biological parents are of another faith, and it's really important that this child practice the same
Right.
Customs of that faith or whatever. If you have a child that is kosher, or
maybe the child was a burn victim, a child, has a sibling who there was just
a plethora of what ifs, and we had to check yes or no, and what would we be comfortable with, and so there's a lot that goes into this criteria that we have that's very gray. In the end, if we get a call and it feels right, then it's in God's hands, and we'll obviously move forward.
And our agency knows that pretty much it's a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
When we handed the packet back to them, we're like, this is not set in stone by any means. Please, keep an open mind with us, because again, it's a totally case-by-case basis.
Yeah. So I think we're really gonna wrap up, because I don't know if Kyle. Oops, I said your name. I don't know if the hubby watches a lot of YouTube videos, but I know you all like it short and sweet. So that is why I'm like talking a mile a minute, trying to keep it super short.
I didn't know. I apologize, YouTube.
But yeah, if you have, like I said, specific questions about things that we've been through, let us know, and we could do a whole fostering series. With that said, thank you for watching, and yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Oh.
Yeah. What's it? I think we pretty much covered everything.
Did we?
I don't know. I was going to say, like, these kind of questions, but that's fine, because we already kind of talked about,
How long do you think that was?
That was 11 minutes exactly.
No.
Yeah.
I was watching that. I feel like it started at a different number.
What do I do, babe?
Stop it.
How? Just press that play button? Oh, record.